Hello brothers and welcome to Sigma Old Man channel. Show me a man's phone and I'll show you the parts of his soul he doesn't let anyone touch. That's not exaggeration, it's fact. Studies show people are more protective of their phones than even their wallets because deep down they know a phone isn't just a device. It's a map of their private universe. Now when that phone belongs to a Sigma male, it doesn't read like everyone else's. While the average person's phone is cluttered with endless group chats, selfies, and apps they don't even remember downloading, his looks more like a hybrid between a war room, a vault, and a psychological experiment he's running on himself. And here's the funny part. If you ever got the chance to scroll through it, you'd probably think, is this guy plotting to overthrow a government or just remembering where he parked? That's how layered, unusual, and unfiltered it is. This isn't about polished Instagram feeds or predictable playlists. This is about the hidden blueprints of a man who lives two lives, and his phone is where both collide. Inside it, you won't just find apps or messages. You'll find traces of obsession, strategy, secrets, and sometimes even dark humor that makes sense only to him. Today, we're going to open that vault. Not the cliché Sigma mystery, but the raw, unedited truth of what's really inside a Sigma male's phone and why it looks nothing like yours. Number 1, photos of himself few people ever see. Most people take photos of themselves with one purpose in mind, to show others. They pose, they filter, they post. For a Sigma male, it's the opposite. The photos he takes of himself are rarely meant for public eyes. They're not about validation or likes. They're about analysis. He uses the camera as a mirror that doesn't lie. When he takes a shot of himself, he isn't asking, "Do I look good?" He's asking, what does my presence say when I walk into a room? It's not vanity, it's strategy. A Sigma male studies himself the same way a chess player studies his moves after a match. The photo becomes a freeze frame of his aura, his posture, his silence captured in pixels. He looks at the angle of his jaw, the tilt of his shoulders, the way his eyes carry weight. Not because he wants to perfect beauty, but because he wants to measure impact. He knows the difference between looking approachable, looking unreadable, and looking like someone you don't cross. These subtleties matter to him more than 1,000 likes online. In his private gallery, you won't find staged smiles or endless party shots. You'll see stills of someone experimenting with light, shadow, and mood. Sometimes the photos are unsettling, his face half in darkness, his expression unreadable, like he's trying to catch his own double life on camera. Other times, they're almost clinical, as if he's studying himself like a specimen. To anyone else, they might look random. To him, they're checkpoints in an ongoing project, one that maps how his energy shifts over time. What makes this so different is that it's not about self-obsession, it's about control. Sigma males understand that presence is a weapon. The way you carry yourself can win or lose battles before words are even spoken, and the phone becomes a silent laboratory for testing that weapon. So while others scroll through endless selfies, fishing for attention, his phone quietly holds photos of a man measuring his own shadow. They're not for show, not for validation, and not even for memory. They're for calibration, the unseen process of refining the image the world never realizes he's been shaping all along. Number 2, financial apps hidden in folders. A Sigma male's relationship with money shows up clearly on his phone, but not in the way most people expect. You won't find flashy screenshots of bank balances, trading wins plastered on Instagram stories, or endless shopping apps cluttering his home screen. Instead, his financial world is quietly tucked away inside hidden folders. Open them, and you'll discover multiple apps for investments, crypto wallets, stock trackers, and banking platforms. To him, these aren't symbols of status, they're tools, like hidden veins running beneath the skin, quietly feeding his independence. What makes this different is how discreet it all looks. At first glance, you'd think he barely touches money through his phone, but dive deeper, and you'll see the evidence of someone who takes financial autonomy seriously. He doesn't hoard apps for show, he collects them for strategy. Each one serves a purpose, some for long-term investments, some for fast liquidity, some for alternative markets that most people don't even pay attention to. His financial apps aren't trophies, they're weapons, and yet you'd never know by looking at him. Sigma males don't brag about money because for them, wealth isn't about flexing, it's about freedom. They measure financial success not in luxury purchases, but in the ability to walk away, to never be trapped, to live on their own terms. That's why those apps stay buried in folders rather than paraded on the main screen. They're private instruments, not public declarations. The presence of so many financial apps also says something about his mindset. He never relies on a single stream. He diversifies, experiments, and learns constantly. He knows systems collapse, markets change, and currencies lose value, so he spreads his reach across platforms. The phone becomes his personal command center for navigating those shifts without fanfare. If you ever stumbled onto those hidden folders, you wouldn't be impressed by glamour. You'd be unsettled by preparation. Every app is a sign that while others are distracted by showing off, he's been quietly building foundations that can't be shaken. His money doesn't scream. It moves silently, tucked into the background of his device, just like him, present, powerful, and invisible until it needs to be seen. Number 3, a calculator history that isn't about math. Most people open the calculator app for one reason: to crunch numbers. For a Sigma male, that app sometimes turns into something else entirely. A vault disguised as something so ordinary no one would think twice about it. While everyone else sees random numbers, he sees meaning. Each sequence might represent a reminder, a code, or a thought he doesn't want sitting in plain sight. To him, the calculator isn't about solving equations. It's about keeping fragments of his private world camouflaged in a place no one would bother to check. This isn't about being dramatic or paranoid, it's practical. Sigma males understand that people are nosy, and the more predictable you are, the easier you are to figure out. So instead of writing sensitive ideas in his Notes app, where anyone scrolling could stumble across them, he'll tuck them into strings of digits that make sense only to him. A long number chain could be a password he refuses to save elsewhere. A calculation could represent a date, a decision, or even a reminder of a choice he's not ready to act on yet. Outsiders would see nothing but math. He sees a coded diary. It's also mental training. A Sigma male uses his calculator history as a kind of private exercise in memory. Every sequence forces him to recall why he wrote it down in the first place. It sharpens his ability to connect dots, to build hidden structures of thought that outsiders could never interpret. It's like leaving breadcrumbs only he knows how to follow. What makes it so intriguing is that this practice says more about his mindset than the numbers themselves. He doesn't just live differently, he hides differently. His secrecy doesn't look flashy or suspicious, it looks boring, even forgettable. That's exactly the point. The calculator, the one app everyone ignores, becomes the perfect mask. And in that mask lies the evidence of how Sigma males think. Not in straight lines, not in predictable places, but in layers that most people would never think to uncover. Number 4, evidence of dual lives. A Sigma male's phone is one of the clearest signs that he lives 2 lives at the same time. On the surface, it looks like any other phone. You'll see the usual apps, a few photos, maybe some casual conversations. If someone scrolled through it quickly, they'd think he's just another quiet guy who doesn't put much online. But beneath that surface, there's another layer. Hidden folders, encrypted apps, private notes, and files only he knows the meaning of. It's not just secrecy, it's design. He builds his phone to reflect the same dual existence he lives in the real world. The first life is the public one. That's the one co-workers, acquaintances, and casual friends might glimpse if they ever saw his screen. It's clean, minimal, and harmless. Nothing to raise questions. The second life is the private one, and that's where the real weight of his mind is stored. That side holds his strategies, his long-term ideas, his obsessions, and even the memories he doesn't want the world to rewrite. This split isn't paranoia, it's survival. Sigma males know the cost of giving too much of themselves away, so they create a layered system where outsiders only ever see the surface. What makes it fascinating is how naturally he maintains this duality. He doesn't stumble or get caught up in contradictions. Both lives flow in parallel without touching each other. The phone becomes a metaphor for how he interacts with the world. He'll give you just enough to think you understand him, while the deeper reality remains locked away. It's not about hiding scandals or skeletons. It's about protecting his essence from being consumed by the noise of everyone else. The dual life in his phone is a reminder of how Sigma males operate. They move in and out of society without belonging to it fully. They engage, but they never surrender. And their phone shows this tension in digital form, 2 different layers of existence, one for the world to glance at and one for themselves alone. In that sense, his phone is not just a device, but a mirror of his double-edged life, half seen, half untouchable. Number 5, voice memos that sound like confessions. A Sigma male's voice memos are nothing like the casual reminders most people record. He doesn't use them to note a grocery list or dictate a to-do. For him, they're closer to confessions, raw, unpolished streams of thought where his guard completely drops. It's the one place he can speak without performance, without editing himself for someone else's ears. These recordings often sound like fragments of a strategy session, a therapy session, and a battlefield plan all rolled into one. If someone ever pressed play, they wouldn't hear a diary. They'd hear the blueprint of a mind dissecting itself while plotting its next moves. In these voice memos, his tone shifts, sometimes calm, steady, and precise, like he's outlining steps toward a long-term vision. Other times, sharp and restless, as if he's catching himself mid-breakdown and trying to wrestle chaos into clarity. He talks to himself about people he doesn't trust, opportunities he might pursue, and mistakes he refuses to repeat. To an outsider, it could sound almost obsessive, but for him, it's discipline. By speaking out loud, he strips thoughts of their fog and tests how they land when given shape. Unlike journals, which can feel too slow or too vulnerable on paper, voice memos capture his pace of mind in real time. They hold the urgency, the hesitation, the conviction, all things that writing flattens. This is why many Sigma males prefer the voice recorder. It lets them externalize their thoughts without leaving a trail of neatly packaged words someone else could stumble upon. Listening back, he can spot his own patterns, hear where his tone wavered, and adjust his approach like a strategist reviewing his battlefield tapes. What makes these recordings so striking is that they blur the line between private thought and public vision. They reveal how Sigma males build worlds in silence before anyone else sees the results. These aren't random ramblings. They're rehearsals for decisions, silent negotiations with himself, and sometimes even dark reminders of where he refuses to return. His phone holds these voice memos like locked vaults of power, raw audio proof that while others are posting, performing, and pretending, he's recording the inner monologue of someone quietly constructing empires no one else even knows exist yet. Number 6, hidden folders that aren't what you think. Hidden folders on a Sigma male's phone are nothing like what people assume. Most expect scandal, secrets, or something embarrassing tucked away. What they'd actually find is far stranger and far more telling. His hidden files are packed with articles that never made it mainstream, obscure PDFs downloaded from forgotten corners of the web, and screenshots of dense data dumps that would bore anyone else to death. To him, this isn't junk, it's treasure. He treats knowledge like contraband, something too rare to leave lying around, and he hoards it with the same care others give to money or jewelry. What makes it fascinating is the kind of content he chooses to protect. These aren't just random articles or school assignments. They're fragments of information that sharpen his worldview. Papers on psychology buried in academic databases, leaked industry reports, half-finished books written decades ago, or obscure essays that never gain traction, but contain a spark of truth. He stashes them away not because he's paranoid, but because he knows how easily valuable knowledge gets buried under the avalanche of noise online. Where most people forget what they read 5 minutes ago, he builds his own underground library right in his phone. The folders themselves often look innocuous. They might be disguised under boring names or buried 3 layers deep, invisible to anyone casually swiping through. But for him, opening those folders is like unlocking a vault. Each file represents a breadcrumb, a clue, or a mental weapon he might need later. He isn't collecting for the sake of it, he's preparing, building an arsenal of references and insights to draw from when others are scrambling for answers. This kind of digital hoarding says a lot about his mindset. A Sigma male doesn't just consume information, he captures it, organizes it, and guards it. He sees knowledge as leverage, and leverage is something you never leave exposed. That's why, in his world, a phone's hidden folder isn't a guilty pleasure, it's a private armory. And if you ever gained access, you wouldn't be scandalized. You'd be unsettled by just how much he's been preparing, quietly stockpiling information while everyone else scrolls themselves numb. Number 7, minimal notifications but maximum content. A Sigma male's phone almost looks dead at first glance. The screen rarely lights up, no constant buzzing, no flood of pop-ups demanding his attention. To most people, that would signal a boring, empty digital life. But the truth is the exact opposite. His phone is packed with content, conversations, research, and tools. It's just engineered in a way that keeps him in control, rather than the device controlling him. He doesn't believe in letting technology act like a leash. Years ago, he stripped away the distractions most people still wrestle with. Social media alerts, endless group chat pings, random app badges screaming for attention. He turned his phone into a fortress where only the most important signals can break through. It isn't because he's antisocial or unreachable. It's because he refuses to be enslaved by noise. If he wants to check something, he'll check it on his terms, not because his phone told him to. This gives his phone a strange paradox. On the outside, it feels silent, almost underused. On the inside, it's a hive of activity. His folders are deep, his archives are stacked, his hidden files are meticulous. He has the data, the resources, and the connections. He just keeps them locked under his own system of order. Unlike most people who are addicted to the dopamine hit of constant alerts, he's addicted to clarity, and silence is the price he's willing to pay to protect it. This approach also changes how others perceive him. Someone might borrow his phone and think, wow, this guy barely talks to anyone. But the truth is, he talks to who he wants, when he wants. The absence of notifications isn't a sign of emptiness. It's a sign of discipline. Every buzz he eliminated was a decision to protect his focus, his time, and his sanity. So when you look at his screen, you won't see chaos. You'll see calm. But behind that calm is a digital world full of content, strategies, and signals, carefully stored, never flashing at random. His phone doesn't own him. He owns it. And that's what makes it a fortress, not just a device. Number 8, a browser history that feels like Whiplash. A Sigma male's browser history is one of the clearest windows into how his mind actually works. At first glance, it looks like complete chaos. One tab diving into ancient Roman siege tactics, the next questioning why people lie about being busy, and another pulling apart the basics of quantum computing. To someone else, it looks random, scattered, even unfocused. But that's only if you don't understand the method behind it. For him, this chaos is deliberate. It's a form of mental cross-training where he draws from wildly different areas to sharpen his ability to see connections others miss. This habit shows how little interest he has in shallow curiosity. He doesn't search to pass time or to sound smart in conversations. He searches because something caught his eye and he refuses to let it go until he understands it. His phone becomes a record of those pursuits, a messy but meaningful trail of intellectual hunger. Every question is fuel, and every answer leads him somewhere deeper. That's why his history feels like Whiplash. It's not a straight road, it's a maze designed to keep his brain sharp and unpredictable. The difference between him and everyone else is that he isn't embarrassed by this kind of randomness. Most people clear their history because it reveals how scattered or trivial their searches are. He leaves his intact because it's part of his system. To him, the juxtaposition of topics is the point. A military strategy from 2,000 years ago might influence how he handles a workplace conflict. A scientific principle could spark a new way of managing time or relationships. Nothing exists in isolation, and his browsing habits prove it. If someone ever got hold of his history, they'd probably walk away more confused than enlightened. But for him, that confusion is a mirror of how he thinks, non-linear, layered, and difficult to trace. What looks like chaos to an outsider is actually an archive of intent. His browser history isn't random at all. It's proof that while most people use search engines to settle arguments or look up convenience answers, he uses his to train his mind like a weapon, building connections out of places no one else would ever think to link. Number 9, screenshots of patterns, not people. When most people screenshot, it's about capturing people, funny conversations, memes, or drama they want to share later. For a Sigma male, screenshots serve a completely different purpose. His gallery isn't cluttered with gossip or internet humor. It's a curated archive of signals, patterns, and fragments that only he finds meaningful. He'll save a single odd sentence buried in a long article, a subtle phrase someone used in a text, or a strange dip in a chart most people would scroll past. To him, these aren't random captures. They're breadcrumbs pointing toward a bigger picture. This habit reveals how his mind works. Sigma males don't chase noise. They chase patterns. Where others see a coincidence, he sees a potential connection worth saving. A half-finished thought in an e-book could spark a larger philosophy. A sudden repetition of a specific word across unrelated conversations could signal a cultural shift. Even screenshots of architecture, data, or random posts online might serve as fuel for decoding trends others haven't even noticed yet. His phone becomes less like a scrapbook and more like a living laboratory where anomalies are preserved for future analysis. What makes it even more intriguing is how private and obsessive this can seem. If you stumbled into his screenshot folder, you'd probably be confused. There are no obvious stories, no faces, no jokes, just fragments that look meaningless. But to him, each capture is a puzzle piece. Over time, those pieces start to reveal trajectories others are blind to. He's not just collecting, he's decoding, filtering the world down to signals hidden in the static. This is why his screenshots feel more like a detective's evidence board than a gallery. They aren't about showing anyone else, and they're not meant to impress. They're memory anchors, tools for connecting threads that are invisible to casual observers. In a way, it's proof of how differently he processes reality. While most people screenshot to laugh later, he screenshots to think deeper later, and in that small habit lies a bigger truth. A Sigma male doesn't just consume information, he stalks the patterns hiding inside it, and his phone is where those invisible trails quietly stack up. Number 10, encrypted messaging apps. No one else uses. A Sigma male's approach to communication is layered, and his choice of messaging apps says more about his mindset than the words he types. While most people stick to WhatsApp, Telegram, or whatever's trending, his phone usually has a set of obscure, sometimes even old-school or little-known apps tucked away in hidden corners. These aren't there because he's trying to be edgy. They're there because he treats trust like currency. Who he messages, and more importantly, where he messages them, is a quiet ranking system only he understands. If you're on the main apps, you're in the outer circle. That's the level where casual conversations, logistics, and basic check-ins happen. If he shifts you into one of the rarer channels, a platform no one else in your circle even uses, that's a signal. It means you're operating on a level where privacy, loyalty, and focus matter more than convenience. It's not about hiding scandals or playing spy, it's about controlling exposure. Every app serves a different function in his unspoken hierarchy. This selective approach also keeps people unsettled. While others are glued to one or two main platforms, he spreads his connections like encrypted veins across his phone. It makes him difficult to pin down. If someone wanted to trace his conversations, they'd end up chasing him across multiple apps, some so obscure they'd give up halfway. For him, that's the point. He designs his communication style the way others design security systems, layered, adaptive, and never fully predictable. To outsiders, it might look paranoid. To him, it's discipline. He knows trust is fragile, and exposure is dangerous. By dividing his communication across different channels, he reduces the risk of anyone holding his full story. You'll never know if you've been given his most guarded access, or if you're just another surface-level contact. That uncertainty is deliberate. It's how he maintains control. So when you see multiple messaging apps on his phone, don't assume it's clutter. It's architecture. It's a digital hierarchy where every app is a gate, and every gate says something about how much of himself he's willing to let you see. In his world, communication isn't just talking. It's signaling who belongs, who doesn't, and who will never truly break past the outer walls. Number 11, zero calendar events. Open a Sigma male's calendar app and you'll probably think he's living in complete chaos. No reminders, no neatly color-coded events, no stacked schedules planned weeks in advance. To the average person, that looks reckless, maybe even irresponsible. But for him, the absence of digital scheduling isn't a lack of order. It's proof of how differently his mind operates. His structure doesn't live inside an app, it lives inside his head, and that makes it both sharper and harder to trace. Most people outsource their memory and discipline to technology. They let the phone remind them when to work, when to rest, when to meet someone. A Sigma male doesn't work like that. He trains himself to carry timelines, priorities, and strategies internally. It's not about rejecting technology, it's about refusing to become dependent on it. He knows that if you need constant reminders to live your life, you're not really in control of it. By stripping his calendar bare, he forces himself to stay engaged with his own commitments, rather than letting his phone act like a babysitter. What looks messy on the surface is actually surgical in practice. He remembers what matters, discards what doesn't, and operates on an internal hierarchy most people can't see. His time management doesn't follow the rigid, predictable blocks of a corporate planner. Instead, it bends around focus, mood, and efficiency. He works when he knows his output will be highest, not when a notification tells him to. He rests when his energy demands it, not when a timer buzzes. To outsiders, that level of self-regulation seems impossible, but for him, it's muscle memory. This is also why he often appears hard to pin down. People expect to book him into slots like everyone else, but he doesn't operate by those rules. His time is fluid, yet precise. When it's time to execute, he does so with the accuracy of someone who's been rehearsing the move silently in his head. The blank calendar is misleading. It's not emptiness, it's independence. It's his way of showing that his life isn't managed by external alerts. It's managed by his own discipline, his own timing, and his refusal to let anyone else dictate the rhythm of his days. Number 12, bookmarked dark corners of the web. A Sigma male's bookmarks don't look anything like the average person's. Most people save recipes, shopping links, or maybe a few inspirational articles they'll never revisit. His bookmarks, however, are gateways to dark corners of the web. Places not illegal but obscure, forgotten, or too dense for the average person to bother with. Old forums that haven't seen activity in years, niche academic papers buried behind paywalls, fragments of online discussions that once thrived before being abandoned. These are the digital ruins he collects. To him, the value isn't in popularity but in rarity. What makes this habit unique is how he treats the internet itself. Where most people skim the surface, he dives into its underbelly, not chasing thrill or danger, but knowledge that others overlook. He isn't satisfied with what shows up on the first page of Google. He digs until he finds perspectives, information, or even obscure theories that mainstream culture forgot about. These bookmarks act like secret doors, shortcuts to worlds most people don't even know exist. The gems he finds aren't always polished truths. Sometimes they're raw, half-baked ideas, strange conversations, or pieces of history captured before they were erased. But that's exactly what he values. Information before it was edited, theories before they were diluted, discussions before they were sanitized. His bookmarks become a personal archive of unfiltered thinking. Evidence of how people, systems, and knowledge looked before the world, covered them up with noise. To outsiders, these bookmarks would look confusing, even meaningless. Why save a half-dead forum thread from 2012? Why keep a PDF no one has read in decades? But to him, each link is a spark, a tool, or a puzzle piece. He doesn't hoard bookmarks to look smart. He keeps them because buried within them are insights that can't be found anywhere else. This is how he builds his mental edge. While others consume the same recycled headlines and trending articles, he's feeding on forgotten material. His mind is trained on the overlooked, the hidden, the abandoned. And that's why his bookmarks aren't just links, they're proof that he refuses to live on the surface. He digs deeper, even online, and in those dark corners he finds truths others never even thought to search for. A Sigma male's phone is not a toy, not a distraction, and definitely not a window you can casually peer into. It's a digital reflection of the way he lives, layered, unfiltered, and designed with precision. Every corner of it tells a story. His voice memos don't sound like casual notes. They're confessions, raw strategies, or battle plans disguised as private recordings. His screenshots aren't filled with memes or gossip. They're fragments of patterns, anomalies, and signals that his mind can stitch together into meaning. Even his calculator history isn't innocent. It's a vault of codes, reminders, and encrypted fragments that only he can decipher. Look closer and you'll see that even what's missing says as much as what's there. Zero calendar events doesn't mean disorder. It's discipline, the kind that relies on his own internal timing instead of digital babysitters. Minimal notifications don't point to emptiness. They're the result of engineering his device into a fortress that keeps his focus safe from intrusion. Financial apps hidden in folders aren't about secrecy for the sake of secrecy. They're proof that while others brag, he builds quietly, investing in freedom rather than applause. His bookmarks drag him into forgotten corners of the internet where few dare to tread. His hidden folders aren't what you'd expect. No scandals, just stockpiles of knowledge he treats like contraband. As if the most valuable currency in the world is information nobody else bothered to save. Even his browser history looks chaotic until you realize it's deliberate chaos, organized in a way that sharpens his mind and feeds his ability to connect dots no one else even sees. Put all of this together, and his phone stops being just a device. It becomes a mirror of his double-edged life, half visible, half concealed. To outsiders, it might look silent, minimal, even underwhelming. But inside lies a private empire of thoughts, strategies, tools, and reminders that reveal just how differently he navigates the world. Where most people's phones expose their weaknesses, his reveals his architecture. Where others drown in noise, he builds fortresses of clarity. And that's the unfiltered truth. A Sigma male's phone isn't where his life is stored. It's where his discipline, his strategy, and his shadow quietly live. If you found value in this deep dive into the Sigma mindset, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share this video with others who will appreciate the unfiltered truth. Stay tuned, because there's always more to uncover about the Sigma world.